goal, that's one of the big things on their list. So maybe someone who's pre-retirement, 10, 15, 5 years away from retirement, this is a must-have conversation. I think for pretty much anyone, but especially for people closer to it. And it's really, what is retirement? I mentioned that, but it's also having a plan, a bridge plan, to match your finances up with whatever the amount of money you're going to need for the rest of your life is, whatever that is. And that's what we're going to do for you. Does that sound fair? Yeah. As many times as you can say, sound good, sound fair, these are mini tie-ins. I mean, there's not tactics. It's just getting agreement with a client that you're on the same page. If they're saying, no, that's not, well, then you got to go a different direction. So you have to always take their pulse of where you're at in the conversation, and are they with you in that conversation. Make sense?
Yeah.
So now we're going to go to cash flow. And so we start with, this part here. And so now, this is where you can say, where we would always be sheepish before and say, about how much money would you say, just say, tell me about your compensation package at work. You already, it's so simple, right? It covers everything. So tell me about your compensation package at work. Oh, well, I make X. Now ask if they get bonus, all the things that pertain. Figure out for both. What kind of other income source may they have? Maybe they have some rental property that they're bringing income from. That's huge. Something that's another source outside of their job. Okay, as much information you possibly can get for their total income picture. The next question you could say is something like, do you have a budget? Well, you're going to get one or two, and not really, or yeah, we said, do you have a pretty good idea of what your expenses are on a monthly basis? That's another question you could ask. And so you start to see again, there could be some active discussion with that part, okay, as well. But let's say they do have a budget. So here's the next question of the day. Do you stick with your budget? So that's the real, isn't that you have a budget, how many people stick with their budget? Not a lot of people, okay? Sometimes they say, yeah, we stick with our budget, okay. And you get the amount of money that they think are the outflow every month. So let me get this straight. You're making about $100,000 combined, okay? You've got, $4,000 a month, $5,000 a month in expenses. And you say there's about $500, you ask how much is left at the end of the month. There's about $500 left at the end of the month, or whatever their number is, okay? 500. So you're saying there's about $500 a month left at the end of the month. Is that true? Yes. So reiterate. So every month your checking account grows by about $500. Would you say that's correct? Yeah. Okay. So you have about $500 that we could start applying to some of the goals that we've laid out here for you? Yes. Perfect. Circle the number. Okay? Now, is that a little bit of salesmanship? Yes. But for whose benefit? Their benefit. Okay? So I just want to take a short aside here and say that I think that we can drop the ball only educating. You know what I mean by that? We have a culture now, which is a beautiful thing, to educate our clients. We want to educate. We were all about education. And we could educate the heck of our client, and at the end, we didn't do anything for them because we're excited. We got in our car, we're like, I felt so good about educating them, but they didn't do anything. They didn't take action. If no action is taken, there's nothing that's going to really be helpful for them, right? Yep. So we have to consistently always be having our hand on the steering wheel as it relates to putting a plan in action for folks, okay? You talk about debt now. So that's a pretty simple section. Find out, hey, any idea what the value of your house is, right? You got a mortgage on that, what's your payment, interest that you're paying on that. Just take inventory, credit cards, okay? What interest do you have? If they don't know the interest, which is a lot of times they don't know the interest, right? Well, then this is an item I always give my clients homework before the next meeting. they have to have skin in the game of something they have to bring to the table next. So they're like, okay, I got to do this. So what was my homework again? Okay, I got to do this, check Social Security, SSA.gov, I got to find. So you let them know, hey, you got to find out, I want to know all the credit card interest. What does that also set you apart? Do you think most people looking for a sale are going to ask about interest you're paying on the credit cards? Absolutely not. So you're coming with a real solution, because guess what? Hey, look, I don't do mortgages, but if they got a couple $100,000 in equity in their home and they have a bunch of credit card debt, you know how many times I see that? Or people, they have a huge amount of money in their savings account and a bunch of credit cards at 18%. You know, you start to tie these things together. They're simple things that click real easy for us, but they're just, you know, it's like the frog that if you put the frog in the boiling water, it's going to jump out right away. But if you put it in lukewarm water and keep raising the heat, it'll boil alive, because the gradual incremental increase in the temperature, they can't. Right, same thing happens to people when they're with their debt, with their everything. Okay, so we have to be the ones that turn up the flame a lot, so they can really feel that. Okay. So there might be some obvious. If there's an obvious thing there about if you're working with someone in the mortgage industry, and I suggest that everyone here develop relationships with people in the kind of the big four, the professional world, so that we can have go-to places not only as specialists, but also that you have constant referrals coming in. All right. So hey, look, I don't touch mortgages, but something doesn't seem right here. How's your credit? Oh, it's pretty good. Okay. Would you mind if I pass this to I have an expert who looks at this type of stuff, and maybe there's a way if we could save you a few $100s a month, would that be something of interest to you? Yeah? Okay, well let me put a note here for that. Okay, next. All right. So you're not trying to be, the person who's an expert in everything. Emergency fund. So how much do you have set aside in case of emergencies right now? $1,000. How do you feel about the adequacy of that right now? What do you think they're going to say? No. Not too good. Like 90%. Unless they have a big emergency fund. How many people have you sat down with that have 6 months of liquid money sitting in their checking account? Not that many people, right? Doesn't happen that many times. Nope. Okay. So this is where you can say, look, they're going to say how bad they feel about it. It's like, okay, well, this is one area that we probably want to fix and work on. Okay, but here's what the industry recommends: is 3 to 6 months access to cash, whether that's a HELOC in your house, or if it's some way that you could easily access money. Of course, we'd like to have it available, and maybe even making some money for us, not just sitting in a place making 0%. What's that a tie-in for? Well, if you're Series 65 licensed, you can do an alpha account, can't you? All these are different things that are reasons to come back to do more business. Lock them in as your trusted. They trust you as a client. You're the trusted advisor. So that's the emergency fund part. Let me see if there's anything here in my notes that I think that. Okay. Yeah. So moving on to protection. Ensure proper protection. So let's shift gears again and talk a little bit about protecting your family. And we're going to talk specifically about life insurance here. All right? And so this is, so that you're taking, what kind of policies do you have right now at work? Right? Oh, and by the way, one thing I will say, kind of going back, sorry I'm jumping around a little bit, but to the emergency fund part, explaining why beyond the obvious, why emergency fund is important, because it'll help organize people's assets in their mind, why they have to have certain things in certain places. If you say something like, look, the reason we need an emergency fund outside of maybe obvious things is you don't want to have to sacrifice a long-term goal for a short-term need. You want to have your short-term needs taken care of by just because then the long-term stuff will be left unencumbered to grow for your real goal is, again, living the want-to life. Okay? So getting into proper protection. And this is where, you could find out the inventory, find out how much insurance they have. Okay, first. This is a latent need. This is something that they don't even know they don't know. Most of the time. Sometimes they're referred to someone who just got insurance and they realize they need insurance. So that happens. But most of the time, this is something that's like on the side. But we can handle, right? So So if you come in and say, well, here's what the industry says. This is a third-party kind of verification. The financial industry says we should have about 5 to 10, on average, 5 to 10 times your income in protection. Okay. Now, I like to do something a little bit more granular that gets into what kind of assigning some jobs to the insurance. And so if I were going to do that with you, okay, and this is where you could write on the notes of the back or whatever collection device you use, you could write it on the back. There's something called a dime method. You just write it out. And so, and what I say is, look, and I do this for myself every year, every time I have an event that caused me to have to reconsider what would my family need if I wasn't here. And if I were going to assign some debt income, or if I was going to assign some jobs to my insurance policy, if I'm no longer here, what would they be? Would one of the jobs be to pay off my debt? Would one of the jobs be to replace my income to my family? How much of that? What about a mortgage? Would that be an important thing? If I died prematurely, would I want that to preclude my kids from going to college if I was planning on helping with that? Okay, so those 4 things. Now, how you then go through that is you then talk directly, husband, wife, right? You talk directly to them. How much, if God forbid something happened to your husband, how much would you need on a monthly basis to live on? $10,000. But you're only making 5, right? Right? This is why it can be more than, right? That's exactly the reason why. Then you talk directly to how much would you need? And so they're the ones saying those numbers. You think the husband's hearing the wife say that, right? It makes a big difference versus you telling them, this is how much you need. We like, if they say smart people ask questions, dumb people have a lot of answers. Okay? You want to ask the questions and let them be the ones to tell you. Then it's theirs, by the way, and it's the right way to get the information as well. Now, once you got the information, you can come in as the expert and say, we got the information now, as the expert, right? Hey, looking at these numbers, it looks like you may be about $500,000 light on your insurance. You see how we came up with that? Yeah. You know what? One of the things I'm going to put a note here, I'm going to crank up the computers, and I'll find out, kind of look at some numbers for you in that area. Would that make you feel a little bit better, sleep better at night, knowing you could be protected that way? Yeah. Okay, great. Move on. We didn't make the whole presentation about an IUL, did we? No, because that's going back to putting our sales hat on again, being a salesperson only, instead of a detective. So now we get into long-term care. You could talk a little bit about it. That's